Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq, coming to you live from Hong Kong at SmartCon 2024 by Chainlink. Joining me for this segment, we have Alisia Painter. She's a co-founder and COO of Botanix Labs. We're here to discuss the next phase of innovation and what we can expect to see on Bitcoin. Alisia, it is great to have you with us. Welcome to TradeTalks.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us more about Botanix, where you fit within this digital asset ecosystem, and what Spider Chain is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are the first Bitcoin layer 2 that is fully EVM equivalent. So actually, I'm happy to tell you a little bit more about how we started. So basically, a few years ago, one of the main things we were thinking about is why isn't there more being done on Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is still the largest cryptocurrency in the world in market cap in terms of number of users, but people don't really do anything with it other than buy, sell, hold, right? And if you think about the massive DeFi ecosystem that's been built on Ethereum, we were like, why is this not on Bitcoin? And the main insight that we identified was the lack of the EVM, right? So the EVM, if you decouple Ethereum, the cryptocurrency, from EVM, the execution layer, and a software client, EVM is the winning virtual machine, right? It has the most number of devs, the most tooling, the most ecosystem. So we thought, why don't we bring that over to Bitcoin? And so that is actually how we got started. And then we built our approach, which is called the Spider Chain, which is very different from any Bitcoin L2 out there. It is possible on Bitcoin Core without any sort of soft forks. And it's a proof of stake chain. So it's basically built upon the strengths of Ethereum and the EVM, but on Bitcoin, using Bitcoin as a gas token, settlement layer, all on Bitcoin.
So what does it mean then at a higher level, bringing the EVM to Bitcoin? What will it allow for users? How does it impact the user experience? What differentiates a solution?
Yeah, so if you think about Bitcoin, right, there's very limited tools in interactivity with it. Most people experience Bitcoin either through a centralized exchange or through an ETF. There isn't really that much you can do with it. With EVM, you're basically unlocking all of those tools, all of those dev environments to actually build on Bitcoin. So it's really interesting. We thought about, okay, what does a DeFi experience on Bitcoin look like? Once you onboard your Bitcoin onto Botanix, you can basically interact with DEXs, stable coins, perpetual DEXs, open, long, and short positions, mint stable coins, as I said, staking. So all of this you can now bring on Bitcoin, and it just opens up so many more yield opportunities. And if you think about Bitcoin's greater vision of really transforming itself into full global money, there's a lot that we need to still build out. There's so many traditional finance structures, right, that need to be brought on chain. And Bitcoin has this real mainstream adoption and appeal that we can actually use to push crypto forward.
So what do you think the next phase of innovation would be?
So for Bitcoin specifically, it's bringing more to Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin inherently by design is a very adversarial protocol. It's really tough to build on Bitcoin, right? And that's actually what's made it stand the test of time, why it continues to be the most decentralized, the most permissionless, the most secure cryptocurrency by far. And we must maintain that, but add on to it, right? And so really interesting, on Botanix, we have 100 different dApps being built on us. The majority of them are for the DeFi use case, but what's also really interesting is social applications on Bitcoin. Because if you think about Bitcoin, it's not only the most decentralized, it's also censorship resistant. And that is a really interesting property that, again, no other cryptocurrency can claim because of the decentralization. So people are building someone's building a decentralized Reddit on Botanix, on Bitcoin, because they really want that censorship resistance, right? So there's a lot of unique properties that Bitcoin has that we must use to build new use cases. I used to spend my entire career in the emerging markets. I've lived all over Africa and Latin America. And over there, there's a lot of Lightning payments terminals, right? So that's Bitcoin payments. And for them, they actually think of Bitcoin as a unit of account already. So there's so much more that we can unlock.
That is so interesting that you bring that up. I've covered African markets before, and when you think about the trends that you're seeing in fintech in general, that seems to be the prime spot for it, right? And I think sometimes we tend to think US Western-centric when there are billions of people who are not just using this as a way to trade or store value, they are growing local and micro economies.
Absolutely.
Using this type of technology.
Exactly. So I actually got into Bitcoin in 2015 when I was living in Brazil. And it's really interesting because the real crashed 30% in a year, and people were like, okay, what can I do to actually generate real wealth, right? That can't just be taken away from me. And I think Bitcoin has this power of being resistant to the conditions of local political economies and the circumstances of the economies that they come in, right? And so that is something that actually is unique to Bitcoin and really has the power to push forward.
And the whole thing is, if you move from South America to Africa or to Southeast Asia, that wallet comes with you. It's not like you have to close a bank account and then open one in a new currency as well. And I think, for emerging economies as well, this is how they transact business.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also just so much more inclusionary. I mean, why does someone born in, let's say, Egypt, not have the ability to participate in really high performing asset classes like private equity or American stock markets? And I think that is the type of inclusion that Bitcoin and that crypto can theoretically provide. It's really interesting for Bitcoiners. They're really excited about stablecoin use cases, right? Again, mostly from an emerging markets angle as a store of wealth and the ability to create generational wealth, especially in these countries. So I'm really excited about that use case.
I am too. I think the alternative forms of capital formation is what's really exciting about it, and to see how this evolves the global capital markets, I think is fascinating because we're living in it right now.
Absolutely. So,
all right, appreciate the insight. Alisia, thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. Thanks for joining me from SmartCon. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.